You know, when we watch lawyers during a trial here on Court TV, you see the two sides going at it, right? Objection, objection. And, you know, they make their arguments in front of the jury. Sometimes they'll make arguments in front of the judge. Maybe sometimes they'll go at each other. But there's a lot of lawyering that takes place before those moments ever happen. Remember, most of the time when someone gets charged, it's months, sometimes years before they get to trial. But in that time, they're not just sitting there doing nothing. They're lawyering. They're litigating the case. They are battling it out. And right now, in the Doomsday Couple case, there is a battle brewing over information. As you know or may not know, before a trial, the prosecution has to give their stuff over to the defense, and they're entitled to certain documents and information. And right now, Mark Means, the attorney for Lori Vallow Daybell, says the prosecutor's not playing fair. Here's a letter that he wrote to Rob Wood, the prosecutor, from the EastIdahoNews.com. We got this. After careful review, your responses lack compliance. This is our good faith attempt to resolve this issue prior to filing a motion to compel. Please provide full and complete responses no later than 5 p.m. Thursday, October 29th, 2020, to our office. What is Mark Means looking for? Well, in part, this was an 8-page letter, by the way. An 8-page letter to your adversary means things are getting serious. One of the things that they wanted, let's put it up on the screen, a list of names, okay? All audio, video recordings, communications, emails, texts, social media posts, voicemails, video statements, pictures, police reports, agency reports, notes, charts, graphs, and files regarding the following people. Look at this list. Lori Vallow Daybell, we know her. Chad Daybell. Melanie Gibb, the star witness. David Warwick, her boyfriend. Alex Cox. Zulema Pastines, Charles Vallow, Adam Cox, Summer Shiflett, Melanie Boudreau-Pulowski, Ian Pulowski, Kay Woodcock, Larry Woodcock, the grandparents of little JJ, Heather Daybell, other witnesses or potential witnesses, Joshua J.J. Vallow, and Tylee Ryan. They're asking for a lot, but they may very well be entitled to all of it. But there's clearly trouble in paradise between Mark Means and the attorney, John Pryor, for Chad Daybell and the prosecutor. Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, who is with us. Chanley, an 8-page letter. I mean, when I was a prosecutor, I never got an 8-page letter, okay? I think I followed, you know, the rules, gave them everything they were entitled to, but an 8-page letter. Has the prosecutor responded to this?
Well, I actually reached out to the special prosecutor's office, Rob Wood, to see if he would actually give me a copy of this letter in question since it was leaked to the media through East Idaho News. Well, he wouldn't give me a copy of the letter, but he did give me a statement which said, "We have provided Mr. Means with a large amount of the information he requested, as well as items he didn't request. Given the complexity of this investigation, additional information is still in the hands of investigators and analysts and will be provided to the defense as soon as it becomes available. Another critical part of protecting the defendant's right to a fair trial is the avoidance of unnecessary pre-trial publicity, such as the inappropriate release of this letter. For this reason, we have not and will not attempt to litigate this matter in the media." So the prosecutor not releasing the letter, but just last Thursday, it seems as though not only did Lori have an issue, but Chad Daybell's attorney, John Pryor, brought up his issue with the prosecutor a couple of times. Let's listen.
Mr. Wood and I have discussed, and I'm not going to make a matter of this, but there's still some housekeeping that needs to be done in terms of discovery that Mr. Wood and I are going to privately engage in trying to resolve, and if necessary, we'll ask the court's assistance. But at this point, without all of the information in this case, I'm not in a position to argue severance on this date, and that's going to have to be reserved for a different date. Allow the argument to be made in terms of severance once Mr. Wood and I have resolved our discovery issues. Once, again, and I'm not beating on this, Mr. Wood, please don't take it this way, but once Mr. Wood resolves some of the outstanding issues that we have yet to resolve between the two of us.
So it seems as though Chad Daybell's attorney also has some issues with the prosecutor, Rob Wood, with discovery, taking advantage of that hearing before the judge to mention it a few times there. So I reached out and spoke to our friend and expert Idaho criminal defense attorney, Mark Manweiler, to see Is this normal? What are his impressions of this back and forth between attorneys? So let's listen to Mark.
In this case, it's hard to tell. With respect to the fact that there are things that the prosecutor has not turned over since the spring, I'm not completely surprised by that. But clearly, this is an ongoing investigation, so it's pretty obvious the prosecutor is going to continue to get material and heat from law enforcement. One thing the prosecutor can't do is the prosecutor can't refuse to disclose something just because the prosecutor doesn't physically have it in his or her office. In other words, the FBI can't keep stuff. They can't call the prosecutor on the phone and say, wow, we have all this cool information, but we're not going to send you a copy because we don't want you to send it to the defense lawyer.
Interesting point there he makes, but so while it doesn't surprise him, discovery is still ongoing. He also mentioned, Vinny, that the prosecutor may be waiting or working on those murder charges that everyone seems to be expecting in this case.
And that's one reason to dig. Ashley Banfield, Court TV special contributor, joins us as well right now. And the one thing judges, I know this because my dad was a judge, judges don't like it when litigants, whether it's criminal or civil, are fighting over discovery. Both sides know the rules. You know what you're entitled to. Give it up. Don't drag me into this, because if you do, someone's going to pay the price. And usually it's the person who's not giving up what they're supposed to give up, or it's the person asking for something they know they're not entitled to.
Still, they do it.
What's that?
Still, they do it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Every case I've ever covered. I think we have this conversation about this time in every case.
We do. Ashley, are you surprised by Mark Means? Mark Means strikes me almost like the old, and it's on the other side of the coin, obviously, Columbo, who was this detective who kind of, moved around and was always by himself, but he was always kind of like tweaking people, and he'd get the answers he wants, but he kind of did everything by himself. Didn't have a big team with him. That's how Mark Means strikes me. He's the kind of guy who gets things done, but does it all himself.
Yeah, if only you had said this to me last week, I would have grabbed my raincoat and a nasty cigar, and that's what it would have been for Halloween. I would have been Columbo, because that was one of my favorite shows, and it was my dad's favorite show. So here's the deal, in my opinion, which is worth, peanuts. There's so much in this case. First of all, just to brief on this case, Vinny, when I joined Court TV, I think you'll remember this, you had to give me a tutorial on the Lori Vallow Daybell case, and it took an hour. And normally I can read it in a case like that. My expectation is that there is a lot of discovery, okay? I don't know how much of it pertains to these charges of concealment, right? But a lot of it is going to potentially pertain to any murder charges if we see them. So I'm not surprised that there's going to be a pitched battle back and forth about discovery, because it's hard to even remember some of the names in this case. I mean, you put up that list a minute ago, and there were 17 names on that list, but I took particular interest in number 15. Person number 15 is other witnesses or potential witnesses. I don't know why it was 15 and not 17, but listen, I mean, some of these people I think we may not even know much about at this point, like Heather Daybell. We haven't heard a lot about Heather Daybell. I love the fact that we've got Summer Shiflett, who's Lori's sister. And we've got Adam Cox, who's Lori's brother, who's going to be the big, boogeyman in this case, dead. Melanie Boudreau, Lori and Adam's niece. And then her husband, Ian Pawlowski. So it's a big family affair, right? And at one point in this case, some people would have been considered very pro-Lori and Chad until children's bodies showed up in his backyard. And they may now be considerably anti-Lori and Chad. So I am not surprised in the least that there is just a graveyard of discovery out there to actually mine. And what I'm interested in is, how much do the police still have, because it's incomplete. It's not that they're withholding it from the prosecutors. They're still trying to finish it, like all those toxicology tests on Tammy Daybell, et cetera, et cetera. Make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Is there a time frame here, Chanley, that we're talking about? Because we do have a trial coming up sometime next year.
Right, and Idaho law actually used to provide that discovery had to be handed over within 14 days. It's pretty standard, but now the law is as soon as practicable. In fact, I spoke to Mark Manweiler about deadlines. Let's listen.
No strict time limit anymore. Just as soon as reasonably practical is what the rule says now. And oftentimes that 14-day time frame was not complied with for reasons sometimes beyond the prosecutor's control. But the idea is the prosecutor is not supposed to sit on this stuff and not cough it up until a day or before trial. It's supposed to be disclosed in plenty of time for the defense to have an investigator go interview witnesses if they don't know about them, or have things tested by their own experts. If Mr. Means doesn't think he's gotten everything he's entitled to, he's probably going to file a motion to compel.
So again, going back to Means' letter, he demanded in this letter that the prosecutor hand things over by Thursday, October 29th, Vinny. Well, that date has passed. So I'm sitting here wondering, what did Wood respond to? Has he cooperated? But what I do know is that I checked the court file multiple times a day, and nothing new has been filed in the court file. So not yet a motion to comply. So it makes me think they're working it out. And
as Ashley referenced, that list of names really strikes me, Chanley, as we look at that list. The potential witnesses out there, but I think Ashley hit the nail on the head. It's really a family affair. A lot of people related to one another on that list.
Yes, a lot of the major players and relatives for this whole story, directly or indirectly involved. He really hit all the high points on this list. And when I did speak to the expert Mark Manweiler there, I said, what about this letter in whole stands out to you as a practicing attorney, criminal defense attorney for over 30 years there in Idaho? Anything stand out to you about this letter? And he said, actually, this list stands out to me about this letter. And let's hear him explain why.
I'm guessing that some of those names are names that came up either in some of the police reports or witness statements that have already been disclosed, or those names have been provided to the defense lawyers by their clients as people that may have relevant information, or as people that they understand have been interviewed by law enforcement. And perhaps they haven't seen a police report summarizing that interview yet. And so the defense lawyer is thinking, well, if the cops have interviewed this guy and they haven't done a report on it, that means whatever he said must be helpful to my client. So they're just covering all their bases and casting a very wide net, as they say, to try to catch even some little fish that might be helpful in presenting their case.
Ashley will like this. Mark Means also requested jailhouse recordings and letters for Chad and Lori Daybell. Of course, the autopsies, like she also just brought up as well. He requested that too.
All right, two of those names, numbers 5 and 6. Alex Cox, we've talked about him a lot, but number 6 we haven't talked about a lot, and that is Zulema Pastines. This apparently, I guess, is the widow of Alex Cox, the brother of Lori Vallow Daybell, so she would be the sister-in-law of Lori Vallow Daybell. And I think we've got some video of her going into the courtroom, and there she is highlighted. You can sort of see her. She came into the game pretty late, right? I mean, in terms of, she wasn't married to Alex Cox for a long time.
Right. Only 13 days, Vinny. In fact, this is thanks to Justin Lum of Fox 10 News Phoenix. Let us use this from his Twitter page video, because there's not a lot out there of Zulema Pastines. She married Alex Cox November 29th, 2019, and only 13 days later, she became a widow. Alex Cox passed away suddenly, and she considers herself a spiritual teacher, Vinny.
Ashley, how much do you think she knows about Alex Cox?
I'm a bit weirded out by her, in fact, because I've tried to poke around as much as possible as to whether she's under investigation, and she's not. From any of the sources I've ever spoken with, at this point, she's not. It is weird, though, that she was married, and I think 13, 14 days later, widowed. And I also think it's weird that Melanie Boudreau Pawlowski was, I believe, and Chanley, help me out here. I think they were married in Vegas within a day, either on the same day or within a day, or everything got crazy because Melanie Boudreau and Ian Pawlowski only knew each other for a very short time as well, and it was a very short time after the divorce. So there was all these rush to marriages in Vegas, and then this rush to head to Idaho, and then these two kids they disappear, died, and then all of a sudden Alex is dead. I think also it was Zulema Pastine's son who may have discovered Alex Cox dead. Am I wrong, Chanley?
You are correct. He made the
That's a lot of
911 call.
bouncing balls, right? What's that?
It is. I know we need a whole graph, but yes, he was the one that called 911, Zulema's son, when Alex was passed out in the bathroom.
So she's interesting, Vinny. She's interesting, but so far she's not that link. But when it comes to this whole debate over discovery with regard to her or any other character that's tangentially connected to the story, sometimes it's that itty bitty detail that blows everything wide open, right? So I get it. You want everything. But then there's that whole notion of Chanley's guest who said it's a reasonable standard in terms of, the timeline and responding to discovery. And so what's reasonable in this case? Well, you tell me. There's so many players. I have trouble remembering sometimes what the details are, and I need Chanley to keep me on track.
Absolutely.
I'm here for you, girl.
Zulema, though, if she married the man, I've got to think there are things that she knows that maybe no one else knows. Maybe Alex spoke to her about certain things that he didn't tell anyone else in the world. So I am fascinated by what she may be able to reveal, whether she told investigators anything, and whether the fact that Alex is no longer alive, does that free her up in a sense to speak openly about what she may or may not know about Alex Cox. I mean, the one thing we know for sure about Alex Cox is that he shot and killed Lori Vallow's husband. I mean, we know that.
And he tased her other husband, remember? Alex Cox was a bad guy. I mean,
yeah.
He tased her, gosh, I think it's fourth husband. Again, Chanley, help me. He tased her fourth husband and he killed her fifth husband. And now it looks that, listen, if I were a betting man, I'd say that a defense is going to show, or at least try to claim that he killed her children too.
Yeah, I think he becomes the target of everything inside that courtroom. He's the empty chair, and the person closest to the empty chair, other than one of the defendants, Lori Vallow Daybell, would be his wife. And what does she know? What doesn't she know? How long did she know him? Do we know, Chanley, if they all shared the same set of beliefs? Like, is there any chance that Zulema was a follower of the Doomsday Prophet, Chad Daybell?
That is unclear. We know that she's very spiritual, and certainly her and Alex Cox bonded to the point where they did marry. We know that he definitely was in the same belief thinking as Lori and Chad, and so possibly she could be. And in that video we keep playing from Justin Lum, Fox 10 Phoenix, that's actually from a hearing back in February. She showed up with Melanie Pulowski and Summer Shiflett, Lori Vallow's sister, to support her at a custody hearing in February. So the family seems very, very close.
All right, Chanley Painter, Court TV legal correspondent. Thank you. Ashley Banfield, I'll see you at the top of the hour.
Thank God for Chanley. All I can say is that thank God you're here, honestly. I love to think that I know everything in a case. Forget about it. If you leave, I'm out.
Everything is just a text away. We just got to text Chanley.